Okay, good morning, everybody. Hope you're keeping well. So today is one of two sessions that we're running, and we're going to look at how we can create learning resources in Canvas using a few tools. So one of those tools I want to, or just maybe first of all, just give you a rundown of what we're going to cover. So one of the tools that you possibly already used is Screencast-O-Matic, and Screencast-O-Matic is available as a site-wide license um, for CIT staff. And so I'll just go through maybe how you get that set up, how you request a license and install it, and just a couple of the basics of that. But I'm going to refer you then on to a screencast that my colleague Dara Coakley did not so long ago on more detail on Screencast-O-Matic, so that we can move on to the next topic then, which is looking at how to quickly and easily record audio and video through Canvas. So there are a few just useful tools there. And then the last one is I'm gonna just talk to you about the H5P application, which we're rolling out to all CIT staff also. So that would have been a tool that we would have used with maybe just select cohorts, for instance, for the e-learning masters and for students that would have been on the learning technology module previously. So we're pleased to roll that out. I think it's a nice addition to the e-learning infrastructure. That's going to be a way of developing more interactive content within Canvas, and I'll run through that in brief today. What I'll do is I'll give you a few signposts there at the end, and just to get you set up. And what we'll do is we'll do a follow-up session dedicated to H5P then afterwards. So I hope that's okay for today. As with every session, if you wouldn't mind queuing up any of the questions that you might have in the Q&A if you're attending in Zoom, and if you're on YouTube, just my colleagues are monitoring that as well, and I'll be maybe taking questions at the end of the session there and keep an eye on them as well. So any questions there on YouTube, please feel free to throw them in as well. Okay, so let's get into it. The first thing I'm just going to look at in brief is screencasting. So for those of you who aren't familiar with screencasting, it's just a way of recording your screen content using an application that we're providing called Screencast-O-Matic. What it's useful for, though, is for a number of different scenarios. So you might think of screen recording as just being useful in maybe one or two scenarios, but if you think about it, in the context of teaching and learning, there are quite a number of applications to screencasting. So support would be one. So if you wanted to provide maybe additional resources or support for students, maybe if it was a screen recording, if it was software based, that's useful, even from the point of view of even sending something to a student or a group of students to maybe resolve a problem, particularly around something screen based. Obviously, you're recording your audio and your screen. So, I mean, the number of applications there are quite numerous. Instruction is another one. So if you're just doing plain instruction where you might be just pre-recording content, this is something that we learn maybe in the remote teaching and learning period at the very beginning of it, where we could, pre-record content and upload it into Canvas for students to kind of go through it, and then maybe to have some live sessions around that if you were developing live content through the likes of Big Blue Button or now Zoom, as we know. Assessment is another one. So assessment is quite a useful one if you want to provide some useful feedback to students by recording yourself speaking over maybe their assignment. That can save you a lot of time in terms of what you write in terms of feedback, and it provides them with very rich feedback. So that might be really useful for particularly maybe formative assessments, maybe through the semester continuous assessments, where you might want to just give them a bit of rich feedback. You can do the whole annotation thing. You can bring in extra content over it. So assessment is maybe one that people don't maybe go to in a very obvious way when they think about screencasting as well. And feedback is related to that as well. Um, the screencasting examples, I suppose, that we might look at just to, I suppose, follow on from that previous slide is recording teaching material. You could use it for recapping and reinforcing material already covered. For software demonstrations is particularly useful, and maybe for things like simulations as well. Um, Assessment examples of use as well, where you can ask students to do screencasts, is really useful, particularly if we're looking at something like where our students and our staff have access to Zoom. Um, that you could ask them to do a recording of something in Zoom and present that as a screencast. So you don't have to just screencast using Screencast-O-Matic. Something like Zoom might actually work quite well as well. So you can ask learners to demonstrate their work. You can assign students to develop their own screencast episodes maybe. And that gives them maybe the flexibility as well to treat something like almost like an assignment. They do it in their own time. They submit it as a file, and you then have a very rich assessment to grade. And then instructor feedback is the other one, which we covered maybe in the other two slides there. Something you mightn't think of as well is Screencast-O-Matic as an editing tool. So if you're not familiar with it, don't worry, we're going to just look at it briefly in a second. But particularly in the context of where we're using Zoom. So Zoom, as we know, can be used to deliver live content through Canvas, but it also can be used to record that content if you so wish. And if you record a class in Zoom, it is possible to download that. Now, only lecturers have the ability to download their recordings. Obviously, students don't get that. But if you download a Zoom recording, you could actually add other content to it, or you could edit it in Screencast-O-Matic. So Screencast-O-Matic, in maybe a not so obvious way, could be used as an editing tool as well. Obviously, if you want to do some more advanced stuff with editing, you'd be looking at video editing applications, but Screencast-O-Matic is quite effective as an editing tool also. So if you're thinking of maybe a situation where you have a Zoom class that you delivered and you want to edit that down or to add extra content on top of it or splice it up, you could do that very easily using Screencast-O-Matic. Just in terms of workflow, and I'm not going to maybe just duplicate what Dara has covered in a previous session, which I'll refer you to in a second to go into more detail. But it's important maybe to think in terms of screencasting. If you're pre-recording content, that you just think of maybe just a simple workflow. And that workflow typically is scripting, recording, and publishing. So scripting is really useful. Just if you're looking at it in terms of maybe just having your own show notes, have maybe something like Microsoft Word open, or just have your maybe just some notes printed out on a piece of paper if you have a printer available to you. And that's quite useful just so that you can record and you're not having to do a lot of re-recording and edits and stuff like that. A script helps you to have a really kind of a tight production. And recording then, you record your screen using Screencast-O-Matic, and then publishing, you can publish to Canvas. So publishing to Canvas is quite simple once you export the file from Screencast-O-Matic, as we'll learn in a minute. So if you want to get started, many of you hopefully have Screencast-O-Matic already, but if you don't, that's perfectly fine. What you can do is you can follow this guide, which is basically how to request a license from the TEL department. And that goes through in detail how to download the Screencast-O-Matic application. And you get kind of like a pro license, a team plan option for Screencast-O-Matic, where you can basically enter the license information provided by the TEL department. So if you follow those 5 steps there, you can request a license from the TEL team and you'll get that password right away by email. Then you have your download the application, and you can download it on multiple machines if you wish. And then you just basically have an access URL, and then you should have access to the tool. Now, there are 2 flavors of the tool. There's the online screen recorder, and there's also a downloadable install. The downloadable install is the one to go with, really, because as with anything through the browser, you have maybe browser limitations and you're not really getting the full benefit of the tool through the browser. But if maybe you're in a in a bind and you weren't able to download it for some reason, you could use the online version. So that article is good to get set up in there, and you'll find it in here. I'll just post it in the recording description as well for you. For any of the stuff around Screencast-O-Matic as well, there's a whole section on it in the screencasting area. You have about 6 steps there to getting up and running and recording and uploading, and then a couple of other articles in there as well. So just to move on, what you can do obviously with a screencast, presuming you have it recorded, is that you can upload it into Canvas. And what you do is you upload it as what's called an MP4. And I'll show you that now in a second, just so you have an idea of how to do that. But that would be the main way really of uploading something into Canvas. Now, you may have to wait for it to convert for a few minutes. You might get this option or notification down here that your media is queued for conversion. Don't worry about that. That's just going to convert your file so that it's available in Canvas shortly afterwards. Also, I suppose you have the ability to upload video not only through your kind of units area, but your rich text editor as well, a rich content editor, which I'll show you in a second. This I'm also going to post into the video description is a link to a screencast which my colleague Dara Coakley has gone through in detail in getting up and running and set up with screencasting. So I would advise you maybe to review that. That goes into more detail than I can go into in this session on how to use Screencast-O-Matic and get set up. Eileen, I see you have a question there regarding editing Zoom recordings. So editing is available as a tool in Screencast-O-Matic. So if you do download your Zoom recording, you can edit that using the edit features in Screencast-O-Matic. Now, I'm not going to go into editing in this session, but if you do review that link that I have there by Dara, there's a bit on that in there, and we can provide you with some follow-up information as well. Okay, so just in terms of getting set up, let's just assume we have it installed. So I'm just going to do a desktop share, if you bear with me here for a second. I'm just going to share my full screen here. I'm just going to launch Screencast-O-Matic in here. So Screencast-O-Matic is quite a light install, so it shouldn't be very heavy in terms of file size. And it's quite an intuitive interface. You have a very prominent record button at the top of the screen. You have the option to have a kind of a script option where you can create a script in the application itself and you can record it in segments. So that's useful if you're doing quite a structured or a long screencast. You can also import content. So that's where Eileen and everyone else, if you want to import something that's previously created, for example, something that was created in Zoom, you could import it into Screencast-O-Matic and start to edit it in there. Now, the first step that you would do is you would use the screen or the record button here. Once you record, it launches this recorder, and the recorder is minimized then down to the bottom of the screen here on the left. Now, apologies if it's maybe difficult to see that, but just if you're on your own machine, you'll see this record button on the bottom. So this is almost like a little toolbar for recording. You have the ability to record your screen, to record only your webcam, or to record both. I think most cases you're going to be looking at recording your screen. The webcam feature is nice. It gives you a little kind of a picture-in-picture mode, just a feed from your webcam. But again, as with anything with the webcam, and we learned it with something like Zoom, the webcam and a screen recording at the same time can take up some resources in terms of your PC or your Mac, whatever you're using. So maybe just to start with the screen and see how you get on. You can choose your audio source, which is your computer audio source, which is your microphone. or your headset. And you have other options here in terms of full screen or max time and so on. So just to get at it quickly, and again, if you look at Dara's session on screencasting, it'll go in a bit more detail, but I'm just going to give you a quick example. If we go to record, it gives us a countdown, 3, 2, 1. We can record our content, and it's going to record my audio and me going through this particular piece. If you want to pause at any stage, you can press the pause button in that toolbar. And when you're happy with it, you can go done. And you can go either straight to uploading, which you probably won't in most cases. I think you're going to look at editing and reviewing. You can go to edit the video, and that'll actually bring up the editing bit for you. And if you were to bring in something like Zoom, you get the same interface. If you brought in a screen recording from Zoom, you'd get the ability to use the same cutting features and so on there in here. So I can navigate through my recording. I can play it back here. It's after recording my audio as well. And once I'm happy with that, I can go done, and I can publish the video. So I can save that video out as an MP4 to my desktop or to my documents area, publish it. I'm not going to do it now because I just want to get through this. But again, in terms of publishing, you save it out as a file, and that file then you can import into Canvas and play in Canvas. So that's it in a nutshell. Getting set up, you can go into the kind of license information in our help docs to get that set up and get your key. Getting the application run is quite simple, I think. And then in terms of editing features, maybe touch base with the screencast that was developed previously by Dara on the more detailed options available to you in Screencast-O-Matic, and that also covers a bit on screencast or in on scripting as well. So I'm just going to delete that one there, and I'm just going to come out of my share a second and come back into just a look at the next bit, which is looking at video and audio on Canvas, and then we're going to move on to H5P. Just going to have a quick look at the Q&A there as well. So yeah, there's a question in there from Roisin Foley. When I try to record Screencast-O-Matic, I have to give permission to record my screen in my screen preferences. That's quite a common thing. You might even see it in something like Zoom as well, where you're prompted to give the application permission. Roisin, if you want to touch base with us and tell that team at CIT.ie, we can look at maybe why you're having a bit of a loop there. But in general, I think you'll just have to do it once. You just have to give the application permission to use your to share your screen and to share your audio and video once, and that should be done. That should be done afterwards as well. Now I'm going to have a quick look here at the next bit, which is screencasting. Video and audio in Canvas, and then we'll move on to H5P. So the rich content editor is an area that you're possibly familiar with. It was launched in the middle of sort of semester 2, I suppose, in the lockdown period, where there was this enhanced sort of rich content editor available in Canvas that gives you the ability to upload video and audio files, but also to record and embed content into your Canvas area. So I'm going to show you how you do that very quickly. Also the Canvas documentation or Canvas guides are quite good on just getting a bit more detailed on that, but this is just another way of getting audio and video into Canvas. So if I go just do a quick share again, I'm just going to share my desktop because it's a bit easier here. I'm going to go into a module, and I'm going to look at where I can access the audio and video features in Canvas. So one of them mightn't be as obvious as you think, but if you were to create an announcement for your students, you can create what's called a video announcement or an audio announcement. So if I go into announcements, and if I go to plus announcement here, in the rich content editor, which is up here, you see almost like your formatting options that you'd see in Microsoft Word or Excel and other tools like that. You have the ability up here to record or upload media. So if you click on that option in there, that'll bring up what I had in the screenshot there in the slides a second ago. So you could, if you did a screencast, you could simply just add it in here and drag it into this area. But what you can also do is you can record. So you see my webcam feed in there, and my levels are coming out here in the bottom. What I can do is I can turn off the webcam if I want to, and I just have the audio option. So that's the ability to just have an audio announcement, but you can also obviously have that on, and you can do a quick video announcement to your students and have that available within the announcement. And that's kind of a nice feature in there. The embed option allows you to embed video in here if you want to. So for instance, if you wanted to go to a YouTube video that you created already. So let's just go to our YouTube channel a second, and click on, say, the Zoom Clinic option here. And I'm just going to share. And in the share option here, you get an embed option. And if you copy that code in there, you could actually copy that directly into the embed option in there, submit it, and your video is embedded in there. So that rich content area in Canvas is quite useful for not only recording content, video content, but embedding it as well. So that's a nice quick way of just getting audio and video content in there. Just to show you really quickly, if you were to record, you just click the start recording button. It'll give you a countdown like we saw a while ago with Screencast-O-Matic, and you get that ability to record into the application itself. You finish it, you can save that, and then that video recording is available within the announcements area. Now this isn't just the announcements area. You can go into your units as well in Canvas, and you can create content from within there. So if we go to week 1, we could create a page, and we can just call this video content. And if I click on that again and go into my editing, I get the same menu bar here, this rich content editor, where I can go in and I can record or upload media in exactly the same way that I did a while ago. So that rich content editor is quite a useful tool across the different areas within Canvas. You can use it in announcements, you can use it in pages, but you could also use it in something like an assignment. So if you wanted to give maybe an elaborated brief in your assignments area, you could do like a video run through of something if you wanted to there. So that could be something like a screencast, or it could be supplementary material for that assignment as well. Okay, so that's the rich content editor. The other place that you will see the ability to record audio and video is in your speed grader or your grades area. So if I go to grades in Canvas here, and if I go into just let's just go into a particular submission here and into the speed grader, there's an option down here to do the same as you would a while ago. So you can record video and audio commentary in different segments in on an assignment. So again, that's a way of maybe creating some rich feedback. Maybe I suppose in most cases we could probably think of using this for audio commentary rather than video. So you can just do a quick recording about what you're seeing on screen, and there's no preview available in this particular one, but if you've got a piece of work from a student, you could give them a bit of constructive feedback here through the audio feature using the mic. You can also obviously use that the ability to select an audio and a video file that you pre-created. So again, that would be you maybe uploading a screencast, and that's maybe looking at that idea of having feedback in a screencast for students. That might be there might be particular scenarios that would suit you. Okay, so that's looking at a few ways of creating video content. So you had the Screencast-O-Matic, which again I'll maybe provide you with that further link to just getting into screencasting with Screencast-O-Matic in more detail. Just because we're trying to keep these sessions short so you can get on with the rest of the day, I'm going to move on into H5P. So H5P is a tool that we're rolling out this semester to all staff. And I suppose students, by the virtue of them getting maybe interactions from H5P, they'll be getting that rolled out. But you will be the person, if you're looking to use H5P, you'll be the only person to be able to author that content. H5P is an authoring tool essentially that allows you to create interactions within Canvas. It stands for HTML5 package, just in case you're wondering what H5P stands for, but it just basically allows you to create a lot of media-rich e-learning interactions right within the Canvas interface, which is really useful. There are a number of interaction types that you can use. So if we go to h5p.org, and I'll post this in the video description afterwards. You have the ability here to look at all these different types of interactions that you can create from within Canvas now with this integration. This allows you to do things like interactive video, where you might create a piece of video content. So earlier in the session, we talked about how you do a screencast. If you developed a screencast, the interactive video feature would allow you to create questions on top of that screencast and other interactions on top of that as well, which is really useful. There are also a lot of other types of content that you can create. There's multimedia types, which allow you to do things like charts and image hotspots, image pairing, a lot of different little assessments that you can create. Now, I suppose it's important to note that by and large, people that are using H5P would maybe use it more for formative assessment rather than anything that's high stakes or summative. Where you might use it is things like maybe knowledge checks, or again providing a bit of maybe an interactive layer over something like a screencast that you might have developed that checks the knowledge of the student on a particular part of that screencast. There are lots and lots of other types of content that you can create in H5P, and I'll let you have a look at this maybe in your own time, but h5p.org, and if you go to the examples and downloads area there, this will just give you an idea of what you can achieve using the tool. And then when you look at the tool itself, we can actually create all of these different interactions within Canvas using this new integration. So let me have just a quick track back and just talk to you about how it's used in the main. So again, it's formative assessment, but you can place any of these interactions within, again, like the rich content editor, into pages, units, and into assignments. Now, it's important to note that when you're creating any H5P interaction, and if you required it to post a grade to the gradebook, it would have to be an assignment, and you would basically be creating a H5P interaction within the assignments area rather than just embedding through through your course. I think where we've seen it really successfully used is where you might be developing your content week on week, and you have units for each week, and maybe in each of the units you have some sort of knowledge checks or tutorials that you used H5P for, and really therefore just maybe checking knowledge or giving the students some way of maybe revising the content. But that said, if you want to create mini assessments as well, that maybe aren't graded as is informally graded, that they're more just reporting to the gradebook and the students can review their grade, that's the way you do it. You go into the assignments area. If you bear with me a second, I might just do a quick demo of what it looks like, and we'll maybe take some questions after that. And just bear in mind as well, this really is just an overview session of how we can create learning resources. Again, with the screencasting bit, that screencast that Dara developed is available for more detail. The rich content editor and the ability to record audio and video is very well documented in our Canvas guides. And then the H5P bit, we're going to develop more guides for you on that, but we're going to do a kind of a dedicated session on this as well, because I can appreciate this is just kind of a high level view of it today. So just give me a second there, and I'll maybe switch over and just show you an example of H5P in action. Okay, so if I go back to my a module, this is just a sample module I'm working in here. I have the ability um, to launch the H5P interface within my module. Now, to answer Eileen's question there on is it available in my modules? Yeah, as of this morning, H5P is available to all staff on your modules, and I'll show you how to access that there now. Um, Now, we have a limit initially on the number of licenses, but that's being worked on in terms of the institute-wide rollout. But I think for the moment we should have enough for people to get on with testing it and getting familiar with it. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how you access the H5P integration. So typically maybe where you're going to add it is in a page or in an assignment. So I'm going to do it in a page. So if you go to your units and you go and create a page, I'm just going to go H5P demo in here, add that in there, and if I click into my page and go to edit, within my rich content editor I have an integrations button in here. So if I click on that, it's the apps button actually, but integrations covers it. Now you can view all the integrations, but you also have interactive content H5P here. So if I click on that, this opens up the H5P interface for me. Now, what this gives you is the ability to manage all your H5P authored material. So if you are using H5P across your modules, all of your interactions will be available to you across those modules. So it's not module specific. You could drop something in from, say, if I was delivering an e-learning project on a separate module, I could drop my interactions into that, but I could also drop them into this e-learning authoring module if I wanted to as well. Now I have a number of different interactions I've already created here, so you can search for that. But what you can also do is you can go to add content. So if I go to add content, what this does is it gives me a window where I can access all of the different interactions that we saw in this page here. So interactive video, all the different content types from games, multimedia, questions, social media. If I go back here, I can access all of those from within this search box here. So for instance, let's have a look. Let's see, is there something in question? So let's go for, we just go for an MCQ. Not really challenging the use of the thing, but just to demonstrate. So multiple choice, okay. So let's have a look for multiple choice, and it comes up here. We have the details about what that interaction is, and you can also look at a content demo. So this will show you how maybe the interaction is used elsewhere. But we're going to maybe just launch into using it. So if we go to use, this gives us now this dialogue is quite similar across all the interactions in H5P. So it just gets a small bit of getting used to. You have to do a lot of describing of your content for it to work properly. So let's just start with MCQ test here, and we're going to add a question in around, let's say, student numbers. What is the students in CIT? And let's just go into the available options then. So this is the MCQ question. Let's put in an option here. So option 1 we'll say is 11,000. An extra 0 in there, and we can indicate that I'm not sure actually is it full time around 11 or 10. Let's just say for argument's sake it's 10, and that second option there is correct, and you can add other options in. So let's just say 2,000 as well, and 1000. Okay, so once we have that, we can also look at maybe more feedback along with those answers. So if you wanted to have a message when the answer is selected, you can say, that's correct, and give a bit more of an elaboration on that answer. And you can also do that if it's not selected. There are kind of tips as well. You can add a hint for the user if you wish. And again, all of these options are pretty much available to you across all of those other interactions as well. So if I scroll down, I have the ability to have a feedback score range if I want to. You have behavioral settings, so don't worry about these too much. We'll go into them in a bit more detail. But I suppose one of them might be enabling the retry button or not. So typically, if it's a piece of a formative assessment and something you want the students to kind of just to be able to check their knowledge, you might let them retry it and just, they get the feedback on whether the question was right or wrong, and they can take it a number of times. And I suppose this might be a good option if there's a lot of assessment going on as well. But a lot of other behavioral settings to do with how this quiz operates at a very granular level in here if you want to. But let's just leave that stuff up for the moment. And what we're going to do is we're going to save and insert. And once we save and insert that actually publishes that directly into the page, and we can see a preview of what that looks like. So that's just a little MCQ, a single question MCQ with those options in there. And they're randomized currently as well there according to the settings. So once I'm happy with that, I can just actually save and publish it. And if I go into my my options in here, I can see the question itself. If I go to settings and if I go to the student view, I should be able to see what that looks like from a student's point of view. So I can see and I can answer that, check, it gives me the feedback, and I can access that. Now this is just given me one try because I unticked that option. But this gives you an idea of how that looks like from a student's point of view. Again, it's important, I suppose, to note that this isn't going into your grade book by default. You would have to have it as an assignment for it to be able to report a score into your grades area. But I'll just show you a second. You have this ability to view reports. So you can view reports for any particular interaction. So if I click on reports here, I'll actually see that test student, which is the student preview in Canvas, attempted it and they got a score, and the best score was. So if you wanted to create some sort of knowledge checks or formative assessments or interactions throughout your course or module, you would have the ability to actually drill down into reports of how students answered or engaged with those interactions as well. The other thing that might be, I suppose, in terms of interactions, I'll just show you another example, is maybe the ability to add something like an interactive video component. So if we created, say, a screencast using Screencast-O-Matic and we uploaded that, we could actually add some interactions on top of that using the interactive video component in H5P. So I'm just going to maybe just show you how you do that very quickly. So interactive screencast, we'll call it. And I'm going to just go to my integrations again, H5P content, and I'm going to choose the interactive video option here. And again, if you want to see how that's used and the different options available, you can actually go to the content demo area here, but I'm just going to go use, and we'll just say this is remote teaching screencasts. Now, if you wanted to add your video that you created earlier, you could upload that video into H5P or into Canvas. What you can also do is you can use pre-existing videos. So if you're using a YouTube video that you wanted to add a bit of assessment over or context, you could do that. I'm maybe going to do that just for this instance because I don't want to waste your time uploading a video into it. So I'm just going to use that same video. If I go to share in my YouTube channel, copy that link in there. I'm going to go back in here and just paste that in here and insert, and that's going to give me just that YouTube link embedded into that interaction. Now the add interactions area is where it gets really interesting. So if I go to the top of this add interactions area, I get all of these different things I can overlay on top of my video. They could be questions, they could be just points or notifications. Typically though, they're all little activities that you can embed, and these are all embedded in time on top of the video. So if we just maybe navigate to a point in the video, let's just say it's to the waiting rooms area here that we're talking about in this clinic earlier last week. What we can do is we can put in a true false question on top of that. It can be a button or it can be a poster frame. So poster frame just takes up the screen, which is a bit better in terms of maybe just notifying the user. And this is a true false question. We're going to say, are waiting rooms a default feature in Zoom? Yes, they are. And then we can go done. And what that does is it adds an interaction on that time. So if we look at the timeline here, we can see a dot. And if we just maybe preview that there, so that's what it looks like. It'll actually pose that question on top of the video, and you get the true false. You can move this around, by the way, and make it bigger. It's maybe possibly hard to see on my screen because I have a lot open at the moment, but you can just configure that. So are waiting room a default feature in Zoom? That's going to pose that question to the user, a true false question. They can check that. And you also have the ability to, if they didn't answer it correctly, that they'd have to actually go back to the start of the video, or that they can just continue on as well. So that's just a really quick example of the video interaction component. I think in the context of using screencasts and recording rich media, that's quite a nice tool as well. And there are a number of other things you can add in there. The other last thing maybe to mention, and I'm not going to go through it in detail, but there is another component that maybe combines a lot of these other components. Not to confuse the life out of you completely, but you have what's called the interactive book component. And what this essentially does is it gives you the ability to create an interaction that combines a number of these interactions. So for instance, in the previous example, we looked at how to create an interactive video, and we also looked at how to create an MCQ, albeit a single question one. What we can do in the interactive book option is we can combine those as almost like a set of assessments, and they're treated as one interaction then in Canvas. So that might be useful if you're thinking of just maybe creating a string of different interactions and making use of all of those interaction types within H5P. So that's really it in brief, everybody. I hope it gave you maybe a bit of an overview on how H5P can be used. A really, really powerful e-learning authoring tool that allows you to create interactive media content within Canvas. Again, it's available to you all as an interaction through that interactions or plugins area in the rich content editor. And again, I suppose just in terms of maybe using it, maybe try to use it first for just formative stuff. I wouldn't recommend going into graded stuff for reporting grades into the gradebook until you're more familiar with how the tool works. And yeah, it's really useful if you use it in combination with things like your screencasting tools. If you edited a recording, like a Zoom recording, you downloaded a recording, edited it, and uploaded it into something like H5P, it allows you to create questions and interactions on top of that. I'm just going to have a quick look at some of the questions that are coming in there, just in case I'm missing out on anything before we wrap up. So, is there a limit to the video length? Um, in terms of interactive video, I think in general it would be better for everybody to split videos in into multiple videos if you're talking about durations longer than 30 minutes, because that just works better in terms of navigating through them in the likes of Canvas, and also saves you in terms of uploading file sizes that are quite large. So in general, I would recommend, if you have very long videos, to split them down into different sub videos that the students can also can almost work through in, chapters or so on, if that's what you're if you're dealing with very large videos or long videos. I have some questions regarding the setup of banks in quizzes 2. So we're not covering quizzes 2 in today's session, but H5P doesn't relate to quizzes 2 or quizzes next, really only for formative assessments in the main, I would say. I would still stick to your quizzes tool, your quizzes next tool, or new quizzes as it was, in Canvas for any formal summative assessment that's happening in Canvas. Really, I think the H5P tool we're looking at more as an authoring tool, something that you can create engaging learning material and provide some knowledge checks on top of it. Can I use H5P to overlay questions that are interactive over a PowerPoint? You could. I suppose you would have to look at maybe you could do a screen recording of something like PowerPoint and add those questions over that, or you could look at some of the interaction types that you have available to you in H5P. There is a presentation one, I believe, that allows you to import stills. So you could create what's called almost like a presentation that you can work through and have questions on top of that. Again, look, all of these, I suppose you'll have to maybe look at and see how suitable they are for your own instance. But I think it's a lot about getting used to it, messing about with it, maybe in your sandbox if you have one, or just an unpublished page in a module, and work with that, see how you get on. And again, I think today is about giving you a quick overview on how to access it, and let's look at getting a bit more advanced in a later session. So I might leave it there. I think we've the questions answered, and thanks, Dara, for monitoring the stuff on YouTube there. Look, I hope it was of some use to you, and best of luck in using H5P. Do get on to us on tel.team@cit.ie if you have any questions, and keep a lookout for our knowledge base as well, which will have a whole section around H5P pretty shortly. We're just after rolling that out today. So thanks everyone. Hope you have a good day, and look out for that session later on Zoom, which Darrow will go through breakout rooms, which I think a lot of people are interested in at the moment. So thanks guys.